Well, Syria's interim foreign minister, Asaad Shibani, says that Syria will inaugurate a new government on the 1st of March. Shibani was appointed in December to head the Syrian foreign ministry under the transitional government after the fall of the Assad regime. His announcement at the World Government Summit in the UAE comes as the interim administration seeks to improve its ties in the region and beyond. The international community has been calling for the protection of minorities in a new Syria. Shibani said the new government would aim to represent Syria's diverse population. Take a listen.
The government that will be launched on the 1st of March will represent the Syrian people as much as possible and take its diversity into account. We want the Syrian people to have trust in it.
All right, let's take a closer look now with Middle East expert Bente Scheller of the Heinrich Böll Foundation. It's good to have you with us. So what do you make of this announcement? How do you read it?
Well, first of all, I think it is quite an ambitious plan. It was already announced in December that this would be pretty much the timeline, but only 3 months after taking over this war-torn country, I think it is really ambitious and it is good. It's a signal both to the outside that is expecting a settled government as well as to the inside where people's expectations are high. So I think it is an important announcement that now we have a concrete date to have a new government in Syria.
And what kind of government do you think we're going to see in Syria? Or is it going to be one that is more political in nature, or do you think a technocratic government is in the making?
We can only guess, but by the decisions that have been taken so far, I think we will see a mixed performance. I think there will be some technocrats because there are so many really pressing issues that are in a technical nature in terms of infrastructure, etc., to solve. So I think technocrats will form part of this government, but I think also that HTS and Ahmad al-Shara have understood that they need to be inclusive to a certain degree. I think it is reflected in decisions they have been taken so far as well. For example, today there was a committee announced to lead to the National Dialogue Conference. 2 out of these 7 nominees are women, and I think we see some diversity reflected in this. So I think we can hope for an inclusive government.
Yeah, I mean, it has been 2 months since the Assad regime was toppled after being in power for half a century. Ahmed al-Shara has repeatedly emphasized that he wants to create this unified Syria. So how successful do you think he's been so far?
Well, I think it is quite remarkable that so far we have no major news of massacres or military conflict inside Syria, if not from the outside, from Turkey or Israel. So I think that is quite an achievement in itself. But I think it is really a situation in which everything is free-floating. He has to solve the parliament. There is no constitution because the current constitution has been suspended. So I think we have a very fine administrative and institutional framework. All this needs to be re-established, needs to be confirmed to have legitimacy. And therefore, I think there is a lot of suspicion about whether this will go in a democratic direction or not.
Middle East specialist Bente Scheller joining us tonight with analysis on where this new Syria is headed. Ms. Scheller, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm joined now by Zedoun Alzoubi. He's a Syrian governance and peace-building expert. It's good to have you with us this evening. What do you make of this announcement today?
I think the foreign minister and the government is trying its best to establish some sort of like a new image for the government, especially after, everyone was surprised with them coming to power, and they want to send quite like nice messages to the international community, to the world, and to the Arab governments. So I think they are insistent on having a better inclusive government in March, because the current one is quite exclusive to HTS supporters. So I think they will, and there is some sort of optimism in Syria that there will be an inclusive government by March. However, when inclusivity here means only ethnic inclusivity. Unfortunately, there is no political parties in the country, and there is no political life that can be reflected in a more, let's say, inclusive of political programs, political parties. So what we will see possibly is more of a government that has Kurds, Arabs, Christians, Muslims, Sunnis, Alawites, Druze. I think that is the sort of the government they think of. This is not bad, but not good enough, of course. Our aim is to have a country that is not built on ethnic quotas, rather on a country that has a political life, democracy, and inclusivity in that. Today, they announced actually a committee that prepares for the National Dialogue Conference. And that one was not very bad. It has 7 people, 2 women, one of them is Christian. This means there are certain signals that this government is really willing to do something. Of course, we cannot judge by statements. We need to judge by actions, and we have to wait until the 1st of March. Yeah,
Mr. Alzoubi, if I understand you correctly, it sounds like, since you say this is not going to be a government where you have competing political parties, it's too early for that. It sounds like you're describing an inclusive, technocratic government in the making. Is that what we're going to see?
I think so. I think they will resort to a technocrat government, but most probably they will try to find some sort of representation for the ethnicities in Syria. And Syria, it's a very, very difficult to have as inclusive as one would aim for. It's a very diverse country with many sects, with many nationalities. So I don't think it's, or ethnicity, sorry. So I don't think it's going to be an easy task. We have to wait and see. And my belief is that this is what is going to happen. A technocrat government with focus on ethnicities.
It has been 2 months since the Assad regime was toppled. Ahmed al-Sharaa has repeatedly emphasized that he wants to create a unified Syria. So how successful has he been so far?
Not very successful. It's not, we cannot blame him only. There's a lot of tension in the country. The South is not really willing to join the government, does not see itself like part of such a government. The Northeast and the Kurdish forces, SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces, these are still outside the states, let's call it this way, the state's body. But again, we are a bit in rush, and I think there is a huge pressure on this government. I don't think 2 months is enough to unify a country like Syria that has gone for 14 years in a very, very tough, bloody civil war. The country is divided, has been divided. So you cannot really unite the country overnight. I think it will last for months. And we need to be very determined and very, vigilant that we need to protect the unity of the country. But more importantly is to stop any sort of unrest or even yet another civil war. The tension in the country, in Homs specifically, between the Alawites and Sunnis, is really tough. The tension between Arabs and Kurds in Northeast is another tension. I think we need to wait and see, wait and support, and to be all supportive of any move, and any positive signal that comes from the government should be also reciprocated from our side too.
But let's hope that patience turns out to indeed be a virtue in this case. Mr. Alzoubi, we appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.